Hello everyone and welcome to game 2 of this best of 7 series between TLO and Grubby. TLO saying 1 second, I need my music for some Grub coverage. And so this confirms it. It is not from a tournament. It is actually just an exhibition match on Battle.net. These are two European players, of course. And in game 1, TLO actually had the early game advantage, Grubby throwing away a Stalker and a Zealot way unnecessarily there, but fought his way back and then just completely crushed TLO. It was actually quite surprising that TLO was really didn't do much there. He could have dropped the main base, he could have done a lot more harassment, but his almost exclusive Marauder army just wasn't enough to deal with Grubby's Immortal, Stalkers, Zealots, Colossus. He had a lot of stuff in there, and eventually just out-macroed him with the main base, although TLO did do some very nice micro, or had very nice control with his Marauders, where he would actually stem forward and bait the Zealots that were in front of Grubby's army out, so that he could actually kite them and pick them off with his Marauders. And he did that like 3 or 4 times and actually killed maybe 20 supply worth of Zealots without losing anything there. So that was great control by TLO. Unfortunately, Grubby had the gold base while TLO just lost his blue base, his third blue base, and did not have a gold base of his own, and eventually just got out macroed. So we are going into game 2 on Shattered Temple. It is a best of 7 series, so it is currently 1-0 for Grubby. Grubby now just scouting the close air positions. I think this is the MLG or a version where you cannot close spawns, because Grubby did not check here and TLO did not check here as well. So there are no close spawns possible in this matchup. Meanwhile, TLO is actually queued up 3 Marines. Very weird here. It is not something that TLO usually done, queuing up 3 Marines inside a single barracks. You usually want to use that money to actually build something else while you queue up those Marines, because imagine there were only 1 Marine queued up along with 50 additional minerals. You could have actually gotten that command center up a bit sooner, or even gotten maybe an extra barracks or whatever. TLO knows what he's doing, and he is throwing down a very fast command center right after that first initial barracks. I wonder if that probe actually saw it. It did not, so Grubby is still playing blind at this point. He saw 1 barracks, but as he saw no gas, he is going to actually suspect this. Second barracks going up for TLO, still no gas. And Grubby is actually getting 2 gases of his own, so we might be seeing a 3-gate expo with a lot heavy sentry emphasis, or we might be seeing some kind of Void Ray just to abuse of this very fast command center. Void Rays are actually surprisingly good against Marines, especially if they get charged up. Unfortunately, this isn't the MLG version with the neutral supply depot on the low ground. With that neutral supply depot there, it is actually fairly easy for the Void Ray to charge up on that and then engage the Marines. Unfortunately, we won't be seeing any of that in this game, because that is actually quite awesome to see. The control on those are usually so good by these pro players. It is a very nice micro to witness. Now throwing down a second gateway as well as a robotics facility, so we are seeing the same opening from Grubby. Look for that third. Did he throw down a third gateway? I don't remember if he actually threw down his expansion or a third gateway before. So I'll just wait and see before I make a fool of myself and say that he's going to throw a third gateway. He is saving up for that Nexus though, so I do think that he is going to throw it down. He just spent 100 minerals on something. I guess it was the Observer. There it goes. And that probe finally going down to make that expansion as soon as he hits 400 minerals. Meanwhile, TLO gonna throw down 2 bunkers, gonna make him very safe against these Stalkers, because the Stalkers can out-micro the Marines forever. Unless they are in a bunker, then the bunker actually has the same range as the Stalkers, and that will completely deny the Stalker from doing any kind of damage. I loved this small harassment by Grubby. While the bunkers were in production, he was able to actually just injure a few of these Marines. A small victory himself not taking any damage. He actually took 18 hull damage, but that shield regenerates so fast that it is not a big deal. Meanwhile, a Reaper going up for TLO, gonna spot Grubby's main base. This is actually a very late Reaper, so Grubby might not be ready to see this, but I don't think it will actually do much since there are 2 sentries. He actually walks right past this Reaper, and this Reaper going to be able to walk inside the main base. And Grubby actually warping in a Zealot here instead of a Stalker, so I don't think he actually spotted that Reaper while it was walking right past his sentries. Now the Reaper gonna get a few kills, 2 kills already. That Reaper doing way too much damage, as well as scouting everything there is in Grubby's base, and really this Reaper has paid for himself time and time again. He does see that robotics bay, he does see the production on the robotics facility. He did get 3 harvester kills, and that was a big blunder actually by Grubby, because he could have seen that Reaper right here. He wasn't paying attention and warped in a Zealot here instead of a Stalker. That Stalker could have completely denied that Reaper from actually seeing this robotics facility that was safely tucked away in the back of Grubby's main base, precisely for that reason, so that TLO would not scout it. Now TLO is actually well aware of that and is going to be taking up towards a starport to start those that Viking production. So look for actually a reactor to go down on this factory and to swap it with that starport as soon as it is done. There it is, the reactor and the starport. So me looking like a boss at this point, being right about what TLO's doing. TLO has 2 bases. He has 43 to only 35 harvesters from Grubby. So actually TLO once again looking great in the early games here, starting his 3rd command center already. It is 74 to 67 supply, and without a single engagement at this point, TLO has pulled so far ahead. It is actually crazy that you can pull so far ahead without even engaging the main army, simply because he expanded so far. Actually, that Reaper doing a whole lot of damage. I can't emphasize enough how important that Reaper was. It did enable TLO to actually get this starport and reactor up as soon as he could, and he did swap that starport with the reactor, and now producing double Vikings. I expect he will throw down a medevac, maybe just for some support eventually, or even dropping while he engages this main army. This main army by Grubby will be pushing out, but this won't do anything because TLO will have a couple of Vikings out, as well as these bunkers and marauders will be able to actually just push forward and maybe pick off these Colossus. There are really not enough supporting gateway units at this point. Sending out one marauder across the map, going to be able to spot everything, and I love this by Grubby actually pulling his Colossus back, hiding the fact that he has 2 Colossus along with this army, and mind games really going down between TLO and Grubby. Now these Colossus are going to push forward, and TLO is just saying what the bleep, because he has not seen those Colossus with this main army, but that had to be surprising. By TLO finding this small group of units just alone across the map. Now these Colossus are going to start doing a lot of damage to the bunkers. TLO wisely repairing this, picking out the Observer at this point, and these Vikings are going to play a crucial role. He really needs to position them correctly, and get TLO actually going to push forward with a bunch of Marauders, going to be able to pick off a few of those units, and going to be able to hold this. Now actually taking his units out of the bunkers and gonna try and intercept this army before it can reinforce. One Colossus is gonna go down to the Vikings, the Vikings though being picked off and focus fired by the Stalkers. Meanwhile, TLO actually gonna focus down this Colossus, and he has managed to pick off 3 Colossus, losing his entire army in that exchange. He has lost a lot of harvesters, 250 to 47 harvesters, so Grubby actually came back in that exchange, but TLO has a 3rd base. He is picking away at these destructible rocks with this single 20 hit point Marauder, which is really going to pay for itself if he manages to take down these rocks. And really, he has reduced that Colossus count to only 1 that just popped out on the field. So TLO, even though he lost his entire army, I feel like he actually gained the advantage in that engagement, maybe not straightforward in army count, and he might have lost a lot more than Grubby, but he has managed to get the positional advantage with this command center, at least at the top base. He is going to be able to produce so much more. Meanwhile, Grubby's base is just now halfway done, so really that income is going to shoot forward for TLO. You can see 2,200 to only 1,300, despite being only 6 harvesters, and this Marauder finally picking away at these rocks. That it was actually quite fast for a single Marauder. He is going to walk up here, strut his stuff, and spot this next. Is going to come back down without Grubby even knowing that he was there. And he might actually just drop this with a couple of Marauders. His army is actually looking pretty thin here. This is actually a big ball to deal with only a couple of Marauders. TLO really has to start his production, and he is throwing down a missile turret right at the edge here. And there is actually a Dark Shrine coming up for Grubby that is a very long to